Hey guys, I want to show off this budget comp that I've been using in Hellgates.
Once upon a time, Hellgates used to be the most popular content in Albion Online. Arguably the best content to make silver at the time and create everlasting memories. Find friends for a lifetime in the Bank of Carleon. You see, this is not a story. But let me bring you all back in time and explain why Hellgates were better before the rework. The way you got into Hellgates was way different than it is today. The first thing you needed was to find a friend to play with, which was way easier since every play was playing out of Carleon, so sitting in bank and finding a partner was actually very easy. And that's actually where I found my friend Legal that 6 years later I'm still friends with to this day, thanks to Hellgates. And once you've eventually found your friend, you had to venture out and find the Hellbat that once killed spawned a portal into the Hellgate. These bats spawn in very select maps, which meant they were usually contested with a lot of fights broke loose outside the Hellgate, which led to way more content and fun. So even before stepping your feet inside the Hellgate, you were probably having to fight over the portal against another team. Nowadays you still need to find a friend, but that is way harder because Hellgates only have a fraction of the player base it used to have. You see, with time, not only did Hellgate change, but so did Albion. Albion got a lot more content, which led to the player base being spread out throughout all the activities. But before, Hellgates was the main content, so there was just way more players playing them. We also don't have the Hellbat anymore. Now you access Hellgates via the city, which sure is convenient, but takes away the cool fights you got into when going to your Hellgate back then. The old map was a true work of art. It was simple, yet timeless in its design. It had the perfect amount of PvE, containing 3 smaller bosses that once defeated, spawns a chest in the middle, serving as a point of interest for your team and the enemies. Probably the most missed feature of the old map was the portals that allowed you to exit the gate, which opened up a lot more comp variety, since if you faced a full counter, you had the opportunity to exit the Hellgate. If you have watched this far, make sure to drop a like and give me a subscribe. Now we're going to talk about the current Hellgate maps. With the Hellgate rework came probably the most controversial addition to Hellgates, the lava mechanic. A circle of death, much like something you would see in a battle royale game. A circle that eventually closes down so small that you can no longer kite your enemies and have to face them head on. This change that was supposed to be positive and get rid of rats actually did way more harm than good. Let me explain why. The lava mechanic killed comp variety. You see, healer DPS has always been the top of the food chain when it comes to comps in Hellgates. But if you were skilled enough, you could still have a good win rate with double DPS comps or one-shot comps, since you could potentially have infinite attempts because you could reset the fight. But now with a closing lava circle, a healer comp can just wait you out till you can no longer run. And one-shot comps for me and many others was the most fun we had in the game, but the lava mechanic was a huge nerf to that playstyle. And with the added lava mechanic, it also came with the removal of the exits in the Hellgate, meaning that once you entered, you either came out victorious or you died. This was another huge loss for one-shot comp players and double DPS players, because previously if you faced a hard matchup, you could opt to leave the gate, but now that's no longer an option. And you pretty much lost by default since you got countered, leading to the rock paper scissors meta where you either full counter the enemy and instantly kill them, or you immediately lost because they just had way too many counters. So the only viable way to play one-shot comp after rework was sadly sitting in the bank and stream sniping people, making sure they had no counters before you entered. And the highest ranked one-shot comp player after the rework, Monkey Towel, only made it work because he would stream snipe people and only enter if you had no counter versus him. But in the old Hellgates there was never a need to stream snipe because you could simply just have exited if the enemies had too many counters. The second thing that came with the Hellgate rework was more entertaining PvE, as SBI calls it. But in reality it just made the Hellgates more boring, having way more mindless PvE instead of the perfect amount with 3 mini bosses we had before. Now there was just a bunch of mobs spread out through the whole map that served no challenge at all and was only there as an annoyance. The third thing that came with the rework was 10 new map layouts that sure looked very pleasing graphically, but I couldn't help to miss the old map. It just looked way better in my opinion. but the biggest issue with the new map were the layouts made some weapons unplayable. Let me explain what I mean. Some layouts had tons of pillars in the middle, which weapons like Curse and Fire couldn't queue through, which literally made it close to unplayable and super unfun when you got those maps. You see, this was never an issue in the old Hellgate since there was no pillar line of sighting your enemy. Hellgates will never be what they once were, and that's just something we all have to accept. But that doesn't mean we should give up and call it quits. Here's a few changes that could bring some light to 2v2 Hellgates. And I want to start by pointing out a great change that SPI did to prove there's still hope out there. They raised the IP cap in 2v2s from 1100 IP with a 85% reduction to 1100 IP with a 65% reduction, which is a great change, making the content feel more rewarding while also giving you the adrenaline of risking high tier gear. I would still love to see a return to what it was in the old days with a 1000 IP cap with a 50% reduction. Second change should be reducing the amount of PV and just adding 2 or 3 smaller bosses to kill. This will make it way more engaging and less tedious, cause let's be real, with the current system you're just running laps and killing mobs that are of no challenge to you. Third change, add back the exit portal. This will encourage build variety since you will have the option to leave the gate if you feel you're losing a matchup. But to balance it out so people just don't rat, add a 3 to 5 second channel time on the portal. Fourth change, more balancing for Hellgates. Sometimes things can be meta for months on end before it's even slightly looked on, making the meta very stale and boring. To keep it fresh, it would be lovely to see more frequent balance patches aiming to shine some light on the weak weapons instead of nerfing the good weapons. I would way rather have a lot of good weapons than just one good weapon that gets nerfed to the ground. Instead, buff the weak weapons so they're on par with the strong weapons. Lastly, I want to hear from you guys. What would you like to see added or changed for Hellgates? Hope you liked this video. This is Sane, and I'm out.